Welcome to Market Like It's Hot, the podcast where strategy sizzles and marketing nonsense goes to die. I'm Yasmin Robles, and with me as always is Izzy Dudosky from Rebel Marketing. Around here, we are not just chasing trends just to chase them, posting just to post, or burning out trying to go viral. Instead, we talk about what actually works, real strategies, real talk, and occasionally calling out the marketing advice that should probably be illegal. As you can all hear, probably my throat is a little scratchy or sexy, whichever you choose your own adventure. Today, we are joined by Teah Ojeda, founder of The Scene Creative. Teah helps women entrepreneurs turn their expertise into recognizable and trusted brands through brand photography, content strategy, and visibility coaching. Her work focuses on helping business owners close the gap between how capable they are and how clearly they are perceived. Teah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be with you guys today.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with some opening or background questions for you. So, you lead The Scene Creative and focus on helping women entrepreneurs become more visible. What made you start working specifically in branding and brand photography?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, I've been a photographer for roughly around 16 years. I know I'm dating myself with that. But I actually started in street photography because I didn't have people back then. And so, with film camera in a dark room, I developed my eye for photography, but then I wanted to move to people. So I got into, close family friends and things like that, but that got a little bit boring. So years and years down the road, probably a year after I moved to Columbus, Ohio from Cleveland, I really got into working with businesses because I was in workforce development. So started meeting a lot of business owners and things like that, and just noticing that a lot of the visuals were trash. And I'm like, what is this? And so I identified the opportunity just to kind of say, hey, I'm a photographer. I would love to be able to help you get better visuals. And that's actually how I started working with businesses. So um, I used to do it for free. And then I realized like I should be charging for this. And so I didn't know back then that brand photography was an actual niche of photography. And so I accidentally, I feel like, stumbled into that. And so that's kind of how that started. But I've been doing that ever since. And it's been really fun.
That's awesome. Well, you also talk a lot about closing the gap between how capable someone is and how they're perceived. What does that gap usually look like for founders, especially the ones that you work with?
You know, it's usually pretty obvious for me because everything is, obvious from the outside looking in, right? But when you are the person that's in it, it's not always easy to see. So a lot of the times, for people who are in it, and a lot of us as business owners, like we're usually deep within our business. It's not always super recognizable. So, for instance, um, I was just talking to a young lady the other day who has a balloon business, and she's just like, I feel like I'm always out and about and doing things. Like, I feel like people should know more about my business. And so, with that, I'm like, well, that's interesting. Like, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's unpack that. Why do you feel like more people should know about your business? She's like, because I'm always outside. I feel like I'm doing, and I'm going, going, going. And I feel like people, should just see me out there. And I'm like, yeah, they probably do. But imagine all of the other umpteen thousand things that people are seeing, when they're out and about and outside. And with social media, with the news, with all of the other media outlets, and with, just in-person networking, there's a lot of information coming at us. So with all of that overload, you would think that more people are seeing you, but in all actuality, if you're not being intentional with what you're doing, you're just blending in with the rest of the noise. And so in that conversation, she was just like, well, when you put it like that, and I'm like, yeah, but so with that, and I get a lot of that when I work with business owners, you think that you're more visible than you actually are, but when you really step back to look at the intentionality aspect behind it, you're not as visible as you think you are. And so I just come in and just kind of poke holes and help to identify some of those places where you think you're visible, but you might not really be as visible as you think.
Yeah, definitely. And I relate to that constantly running around thing and hoping that more people know who I am. Um, what are some signs someone's brand presence is not reflecting the level of expertise they actually have?
Oh, I love this. We're talking about duplicity, and this is something that I see often. I think a lot of us see often. It's one of those things where you see a presence online, but then when you get in front of these people, something is immediately off. And a lot of times you yourself can't even identify what that something is. You just know, like, this isn't matching what I see online or what I am experiencing online. And so the experience presents itself different. That's number one. Number two, you figure it out when you get into conversation.
Mhm.
So once you start interacting with, said person or brand, and you're not getting the same messaging, or you're not getting the same vibe, or I think they like to call it brand voice, and things like that, where a lot of the things that are coming out in that conversation become contradictory. And what I find when I'm in front of people, which is extremely interesting, and it actually made me even think about this duplicity problem, is that sometimes people are paying attention to you. Sometimes people are reading your emails. Sometimes they are scrolling through your social media and your website and all of these things, and they are tuned in. And what will happen is when they do get in front of you, they'll repeat back to you some of the things that you've actually said. And if you're looking like a deer in a headlight, like you don't know what they're talking about, that's a sign.
Definitely.
Yeah, so let's pivot into personal branding. Personal branding gets thrown around a lot,
Mhm.
especially as marketers. When you say personal brand, what do you truly mean?
For me, personal branding is really putting on display who you are as the founder or owner, right? You are literally the person behind whatever the name of the brand is. And for me, it is my name, it is who I am. So, what are all of the things that I, as an individual, bring to the table as the owner of this business and this brand? So, for me, personal branding is, for me, bringing my, I'm kind of funny, I like to think. So I bring a little bit of humor to my brand. And what you see online is what you get in person. I also bring a little bit of awkwardness to the table, because I am what I like to call an introverted extrovert. So I'm an introvert with extroverted tendencies. I can be outside, not for long, right? I can do people in doses. Like, I can do all of these things. And so, what I like to do with that, and so I don't put myself in uncomfortable situations, that is what I display. That is what I tell people. I tell people, like, these are the awkward things that you're going to encounter when you encounter me. Just be prepared. And I fully walk in that and own it. I also walk in and own my voice. Sometimes I mess up. Sometimes, and I'm sure at some point in this podcast, I'm probably going to have to pause and be like, run that back and cut that part out and edit this part out. But I fully own my humanity and who I am, in the fact that I am not perfect. So even in conversation, there might be some awkward pauses. And even when I listen to my own podcast, I'm like, man, there are some weird places that I pause and say things, but I don't edit those things out, right? This is what you see, is what you truly get.
I love that. And so, what is, I guess, the biggest misconception that people have when it comes to that personal branding?
That it has to be perfect. Um, Nobody wants that. I don't know what it is that even makes us think that. And maybe it is um, because we see a lot of perfection in some of the bigger name brands like Nike or Google, or these million billion-dollar brands. We see that level of perfection in those brands, and I think the biggest misconception is that we need to translate that into our small businesses, or our micro businesses, and things like that. And so I think the reason that that even exists is because we don't talk about the fact that we aren't these massive, you know, corporations with thousands upon thousands of dollars to throw into marketing to make it perfect. And what I love that I'm seeing now here in 2026 is that those brands are even realizing like that's not what's moving the needle now. Like they are actually investing in smaller influencers, creators, normal people, stay-at-home moms, like the people who don't have that, because we bring the real aspect of life and connectivity and relatability to the table. And so they're even starting to realize like we got to get away from this like everything is perfect type marketing and really dig into this grassroots connection and things like that. um, and so yeah, this perfection, everything has to be perfect. It has to sound perfect. It has to look perfect. Like that's the biggest misconception.
Would you say that's also the biggest difference between the authentic visibility and what you like to call performative branding, or is there a different something else that we could bring up?
You know, yeah, I would say that that's a really big factor. Um, I have tapped into, you know, this user generated content marketing in my, you know, in the personal branding portion of my business and helping other creators and small business owners figure out how to use that as a new revenue stream in their businesses. And one of the things that I really like to point out is that we don't want to see your perfectly crafted kitchen, right? Like normal people have a dish or two in the sink. Normal people have a baby bottle on the counter. Like, please stop curating everything. I am literally recording this in my closet, right? You see the clothes in the background. I'm not about to green screen that out. Like I said, what you see is what you get. And that's really what people connect with because normal people have clothes in their closet, right? Normal people don't have, well, I won't say normal people, but a lot of people don't have the luxury of having second offices, right? That they can record in. And so bridging that gap of just use what you have is, I think, extremely important here to tie those two things together.
I love that because you see in my background, if they're watching the video, you'll see like a green wall, but it's because you can't see everything that's on the other side of the desk, and I'm
Yeah,
purposefully putting the wall behind me so that I don't have to clean.
I know that's right. That's real. That's real. I mean, I'm looking around me right now. I got a pile of clothes in the corner. Um, you know, you could probably see a few things in that mirror behind me of just like earrings that are hanging up, but it's like this is real life. Like we are not in a movie. We are living in real life. And so and especially nowadays with what's happening in the world around us, like people just need something real.
And I feel like they definitely connect with it more than they used to, versus like that always professional tone that was used. But yeah, I can't say anything because I have a giant iguana cage behind me. But um, going going into brand photography, it's such a huge part of what you do. What does visual storytelling? Why does visual storytelling matter so much for entrepreneurs today?
Uh it goes back to people wanting to be a part of something, that
Mhm.
connectivity piece. People want to be a part of the story. We love stories. Storytelling is huge. Instagram knows that, right? Instagram just did this massive upgrade and they're like, all right, out with all this other crap. I want carousels and I only want the carousels that tell us a story.
Mhm.
Why? Because they are understanding that people are tapping into one, things that they can connect with, two, things that they can relate with, and three, things that they can literally follow. And so if you can keep somebody from a beginning of a story to the end, that is what moves people. That is what people are literally leaning into. And so with this visual branding and visual storytelling, with your pictures, it's almost like going back to those family pictures where people want to see the progression of things. They also want to see the progression of things in your business. And so when I'm working with, you know, business owners, I tell them like, yeah, you need to be updating brand photography regularly so that people can see your progression, so they can see the growth in your business, so that they can actually see that things are alive. If you're utilizing, photos from 10 years ago, that's not doing anything for letting us know what's happening in your business today. Now, caveat to that, there is a place for you, the iteration of you 10 years ago. We can still honor that business owner from back then. There's just a different way to use that visual imagery. And so we can actually take that imagery and move it to a different place where even that tells a story about where you used to be. And so when I'm doing that, I say, hey, don't throw those things away, archive it for now, and then let's pull it out when we want to tell that part of your story.
Yeah. What makes brand photography different from just hiring someone for headshots?
Headshots. So, this is such a funny story because brand photography, first of all, let me just give the basics. Like, headshots are literally supposed to be from mid chest up. That is a traditional, like, cropped headshot. It's not supposed to be like the rest of your body, you sitting on the couch. Like, that is not a headshot. That, what I just described, is more of a lifestyle shot. And so I think nowadays the terminology kind of gets a little blurred, because there's like the corporate headshot, and then there's like the more laid back, relatable headshot where you're maybe not in a blazer and a button up, maybe you have a sweater on or something. Um, the difference though is with traditional brand photography, it really brings that storytelling piece into perspective, because with a headshot, you can't really say much about the type of individual that you are and or how you work with people. And so brand photography brings those additional pieces in and incorporates not just you as the subject, but potentially your, the tools of your trade, the environment that you work within, how you work with people, your process, things of that nature. And so it takes the headshot and puts it into perspective of all of the things that you do in the business that you represent. So it really just opens that up. So I like to say your headshot is like the handshake, and then the brand photography is you welcoming someone into your space, your office, and into who you are. So that's the difference. I feel like the headshot is more of a hey, and oh, and here's my dog. Hello, real life. This is real life, right? But yeah, so that's the difference.
Yeah. What are some common mistakes people make when planning brand photos?
The biggest one is not planning.
Yeah. Fair.
The biggest one is not planning. This is something I unfortunately still run into, even when I do provide all of the planning materials. So I send guides, I reach out in between. I'm like, hey, what questions do you have? Um, I've actually gotten a lot better with this process so that people don't come to me unprepared. But what I find is sometimes people are overwhelmed by the things that they actually have to think about before coming to the photo shoot. And also, it's brand photography is extremely vulnerable. You are literally putting yourself and how you work and everything that you do on display for people to see. So I think the nerves of that get to people, and then they're just not prepared for just how vulnerable it feels. So they forget things, they don't go through all of the pages of the guide that I sent. They don't actually read, and do the work that it takes beforehand. So in my guides, for instance, I ask questions, and I ask questions for a reason. I'm trying to get you to think through the process. Okay, is there a prop that I need to bring? Would this photo look better with, the microphone in it versus, me just sitting there smiling at the camera, so not being prepared is the biggest thing, I think. And I'm like, what has happened between, you know, but I handle it. I am a photographer that can handle that.
Okay, so many founders struggle with being visible and asking for a friend. What do you see? What do you see holding people back the most when they are founders and they're trying to be more visible?
I feel like a lot of people care too much about what others think. And this is the piece that really holds them back, putting too much stock into what other people will think or feel about how they show up, and the fact that they're even choosing to show up at all. This is something that is huge right now, and that I am consistently on a soapbox about, because if you're not going to speak about you, who else is going to do that? Right? Like, you kind of have to come to terms with the fact that nobody else is going to root for you, move the needle forward, build your business like you. And so when I'm talking to people, and oftentimes in my discovery calls, and even in just like, regular conversations with other business owners, they care too much about, well, aren't people going to get annoyed with, me, consistently seeing my face on Instagram? No, because the truth of the matter is, they're only going to see you like 3.2% of the time anyway. And so we think that other people are thinking about us more than they actually are. They're not. That is the point. The point is, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable with putting yourself out there more, because, like I said at the beginning, it's not as much as you think. And so if you aren't tired of hearing your voice yet, you're not talking about your business enough. You're not talking about your brand enough. You should feel like you sound like a broken record. You should feel like, in scrolling through, your social media, or looking at the emails that you're sending out, or, when you are in public places and talking to people, you should start to feel like a regular. If you're not doing that, you're not doing it enough.
So, I guess how can someone show up more consistently online without feeling like they're constantly creating content, or even creating content that just like they're just done? They don't know what else to come up with.
That that is such an individualized question that every person actually needs to take time out to answer for themselves. This is where my visibility coaching program was developed, because this is so individualized and specialized to each individual business. It has to be answered by that person individually, without everybody else's opinion on how many times you should be posting and how many times you should be doing this and blah blah blah, blah, right? You have to literally sit down as a founder and answer that for yourself. What does it look like for me in my context with what I do to show up consistently, and how can I do this consistently in the life that I live? For myself, this is something that I had to go first and answer for myself. I am a mom of two. At one point in this business, I was a full-time pastor with my husband. I also obviously own a business and was on a board and so many other things. Like, life was lifing. And so for me to show up consistently in the midst of all of that, I couldn't keep up with what everybody else was telling me to do. So I had to decide for myself, okay, if I can only sit down on a Tuesday and do this for 3 hours, what needs to get done in order for this to go forward, in order for this to look, like I need it to look, and to move the needle forward? What does that mean? So I had to look at my data. Okay, what is my data telling me now? Okay, this is, not working, or nobody was paying attention to that. So scrap that. So you literally have to get into the nitty-gritty of the data of your business, the realness of your life and what your life requires of you, and then build within that. I'm a very big proponent of building businesses around your life and not in place of it. So, but in order to do that, you really need to figure out, okay, but what does that actually look like? Where are the holes? How can I sit down and actually make this make sense? And then from that, you're able to build something real consistent and something that you can do when you're sick or when you literally don't feel like being out there, right? I am not on social media all the time. I have a schedule. I schedule my stuff to go out at certain times. And so while it may look like I'm on Instagram 24/7, I'm not, right? And in fact, contrary to popular belief, I freaking hate social media. So there's that part too. And what's nice is I'm not stressed out about it. Look at this face. Does this look like a stress face? Right? So it's possible. It's possible to show up regularly, right? Quote unquote, and not be stressed out and feel like you always have to be on. You don't. And there is a way to do that. You really just need to sit down and put in the work to figure out what does that look like for you.
I love that. And so, knowing that we can schedule things to look like we're online more than we are, what role does that repetition play in building a recognizable brand? And I think you touched on it a little bit, but let's just kind of bring it home.
Yeah, it really helps when you have those systems in place. Systems are so important. Like I love a good system, right? When you can use something like a scheduler to your advantage, do that. When you can use something like automation in building things out, if this then that kind of structure, then do that. Those are the things that I think aren't talked about enough when you are starting your business and you're figuring out this marketing thing. It's usually at the tail end of you being burnt out from trying to do it all yourself that you hear the words systems, automation, and things of that nature. And it's usually when you are ready to throw in the towel because you've spent all of these hours doing things that there's literally an app for that, right? And so really, I think putting those things in place early on and really getting comfortable with them and going through the okay, I got to watch these tutorials to figure out how to use this thing appropriately to your benefit. Like if you can do those things earlier, um, and really just take some time to familiarize yourself with them, they will work for you so that you can go and actually live the crazy life that you have, right? And be present in it and have fun and do those things. And the benefit in the ROI of putting those things in place is it's literally working for you while you're doing something else. So the scheduler, for instance, I have, because a lot of my business comes from Instagram for me personally, I have posts scheduled out 2 weeks on Instagram. And I have a campaign that I'm working on where it's kind of funny at times. And then at times it's kind of educational. And at times it's kind of like, I'm your business bestie. I'm going to talk to you about some things. Like, so there's a little bit of all of that, but it's all scheduled. It's done. So I'm not stressing about what I'm going to post tomorrow. I'm not stressing about what people are going to see. And half the time, I don't even remember like what people are looking at until I'm at an in-person networking event and I hear somebody say like, "Oh, I love that thing that you just posted. I just had this happen the other day. I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn privately, and they said, you know what? I love that post that you put up about um, you not getting your any responses from the umpteen proposals that you sent. That was so real. I needed to hear that encouragement. I I had that. I completely forgot. Like I didn't forget about the not getting, you know, responses back. That's consistently on my mind. But I said all that to say, when you can utilize these systems the way that you're supposed to have them work for you, you can just kind of chill a little bit, right? And
Yeah.
breathe.
No, definitely. And a question to go off of what you were just talking about with like scheduling posts to kind of one break that up from your everyday so you're not worried about scheduling every day. How can someone stay visible without burning out from constant content creation?
Repurpose, repurpose, repurpose
Yep.
everything. I listen, I know how to make about a good 15 repurpose something or other out of one concept. I will use I will use the hell out of a post, right? Or I will turn that thing into a blog. I will turn it into a car side chat for my stories. I will turn it into whatever that thing needs to be in order for me not to have to make content every single day, right? I will literally go sit at a coffee shop like I did the other day, and I schedule myself these little content dates, these little solo content dates. I'll go pick a coffee shop that I really like, not Starbucks because they don't have anything on the menu I like right now. It's just so disappointing. But I will go pick a local coffee shop and sit there and make content, and I'll probably take this podcast episode and turn it into a blog. I will literally look. I will turn this podcast episode into a story, a reel. I'll turn it into 15 reels. Why? Because you can cut it and slice it and splice it. Like you can do so many things. It's it's really the creativity part that I love about content. It's a one and done situation, and I think that's a common misconception with that. Like you can literally repurpose anything.
Yeah, I love that. And you can also repost depending on the post. I believe that you can repost it because who knows who was paying attention last year.
Hmm.
Um, all right. So if someone listening today feels like their brand presence is messy or inconsistent, what are three things they could start fixing this week?
I would say the first thing is just to start with what you actually want it to look like. Um, I think a lot of times it becomes messy or inconsistent because we haven't really done the pre-work to identify what we want it to look like on the front end. And so if you can go back to the drawing board, and even if you have done that before, right? Because sometimes people have and we just get off track because we're human. Go back to what you originally said you wanted your brand presence to look like, sound like, and how you want it to be perceived. Go back to the basics. If it doesn't line up with that, scrap it, right? And start fresh. Then I would say once you've identified that, the next thing you can do is look at what you do have in front of you and say, does this align with what I just said I want? And if it does, keep it, right? So start making a folder of, okay, I had this, I didn't post it, but it definitely aligns with where I said I was going. Put it in a folder, right? Put it off to the side and start compiling the things that are aligned, right? So that you really don't have to start from scratch. Then, so that's the second thing. And then the third thing is just to say, okay, now that I have realigned myself, know the direction, I know what I need this to look like. You've done the cleanup, you've put things off to the side that are aligned. Then I would say, okay, knowing that I know where I'm going now, is there a simple campaign that I can start with? And by campaign, I mean, is there a simple 3 to 5 pieces of content that I can start with that I can repurpose across wherever it is that you're trying to show up, whether that's LinkedIn or your email campaigns, you're trying to build that out, whatever it is. Um, can I take these 3 to 5 things and just repurpose them across everywhere that I need to show up so that I can start slow, don't get overwhelmed, and have the message be consistent across every single place that I'm showing up? If I can just do that, that's a good start. And then it's also a start that is going to allow you to repeat, right? So that you're not overwhelmed. Um, there's a word that I'm thinking of that's not coming to mind, that I really want to say, but essentially, if you can put those 3 things into place, like that's a good place to start. And you can do that over and over again without having to feel overwhelmed.
Okay, so what's one branding decision that you've done or that you have seen someone else do that had a really big impact on how their business was perceived?
I'm gonna use myself personally. One of the biggest decisions that I think I utilized for my own brand that has had a huge impact on public perception and just how people are receiving me is really leaning into using my voice literally. Um, Me speaking is something that I have, for as long as I can remember, ran in the opposite direction from. Why? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe, like most people, you just don't like to hear yourself speak. Um, or when you hear it back, you're like, ugh, it's like, it's cringy. So, with that, I want to say, as I have taken, my pastor's advice to never turn down an opportunity to speak, because you're so gifted, you have the ability to draw people in, like your voice is captivating, and I'm like, is it? But even not believing in those things at first, as I start to lean into that, I notice impact, right? And impact is huge to me. It's like, if you're not going to make an impact, don't do anything at all. That's how strongly I feel about that. So when I started noticing that, just in the little opportunities that I had to speak into, or to speak into a situation or into a person's business or whatever, um, even if it was like a session where I literally had to have like like a, come on, like, let me hype you up real quick so we can get this session done and so you can walk away feeling really good about it. Like, even in those little things, what I've noticed is that using my voice has really opened up doors and opportunities for me that I, one, wasn't looking for, and two, didn't dream that I would even have. It has literally changed the trajectory of my business, in ways that I wasn't anticipating, and in a really positive way. Um, so it's the thing that I don't want to do. It's the thing that I'd rather not. It's the thing that I would just like to be quiet and be in the background and be behind the camera. But guess what? This is the thing that people want, that people connect with, that moves things forward. And so by leaning into that, um, it has literally changed the trajectory of my business and how I connect with people. And then also, how other people show up. It's encouraging. I gotta lean into the fact that I'm an encourager. And nowadays people need that, because stuff out here is crazy. So, like, I just lean in. And if I could encourage anybody, here I go, she's encouraging. If I can encourage any other, business owner to think about the one thing that you don't want to do and lean into that. Because it's
Mhm.
probably the thing that is going to change everything.
Kind of going off of that theme, what's something you've learned from working behind the camera with so many entrepreneurs?
That we are so scary. I laugh hysterically at people, and I laugh with them too. I don't just laugh at them. That would be so bad. But I love just listening. Like, I listen so much. Like, I get to listen, um, because I do a lot of events. So I get to be the fly on the wall in the room, and I'm moving around, and I'm like the paparazzi. I just come out of the bushes. Um, and in just different individual branding sessions, like, I listen a lot to people just start talking, and sometimes they don't know what they're talking about, and sometimes a lot of the real stuff comes out, and I hear a lot of fear of showing up, fear of how it's going to look, fear of how it's going to sound, fear of what they're going to think, how is it going to translate, what's going to be written about me, all kinds of crazy stuff. um and I get to just be the jokester that I am and lighten that a little bit, and be like, and I'm also like, the so what? Like, who the freak cares? Like, be out here in these streets. Like, people need to know you. People need to see you. They need to experience you. Like, I'm the so what girl. Like, do it anyway. Like, we out here. We ride at dawn. Um, and so I get to be that, and it's so much fun. But hopefully that is a roundabout way to answer that.
Yeah. Well, when you're encouraging these entrepreneurs, have you ever had a moment where a client suddenly saw themselves differently through like your work?
Oh my God, yes. One of my most favorite things that happened last year was I did this posing workshop. And this posing workshop, in my mind, it wasn't a big deal. Like, because I think because I do this all the time, I just don't realize how big of a deal posing is to people, and how uncomfortable it is, and how people will literally run and avoid cameras because they don't know what to do with their hands or they don't know how to pose. And so when I did this posing workshop, and I am a Christian, so before I do anything, I always ask the Lord, like, give me the words, right? Because I can go in here and give them the 1-2, but again, it's about impact. Help me to help these women not just focus on their hands, but their presence. So I asked the Lord to help me put this workshop together. What I did not know was that this workshop was going to be all the rave. I mean, I don't think anybody anticipated what was going to happen in this workshop, but it wasn't just me talking at them. It was teaching, and then there was practicum. I'm like, all right, so now that I've, spoken to you, I gave you, the 1-2. Now we're gonna do it. And I busted out the camera. I hit the music. I had everybody line up like in a Congo line, and I'm like, let's go. Let's put it to work. And what I did not realize was the fact that not only did people leave there knowing what to do with their hands, right? And having something practical that they could walk away from, but I got so many messages and just people talking about it weeks afterwards and saying like, wow, that really helped me. Like when I'm in front of cameras now, I don't freeze. When I'm in front of cameras now, like I don't run in the other way. Like I know what to do. And there's confidence there that was not there before. And that's the result, that people got from that. And so I want I just really wanted them to be confident in the end of it, and that's what they got. And so, that's probably my favorite example of, just how that all translated and what people took away from it that was, like, evident.
Yeah. So you have a podcast called Behind the Scenes with Tia. What can listeners expect from that?
You know, they can expect the real. It's meant to be real, raw, and relatable, so you'll never get anything super scripted. Um, 1, because I'm not good at scripting, but 2, because we get enough of that in everyday life. I just don't think I want to create another space where there's more scripts. So they can expect to hear something that they can shake their head and say, "Yep, been there," or "Yep, experienced that," or "You know what? That happened to me, and she's so right." Like I want people to be able to co-sign and be like, "Yeah," or "I've been waiting for somebody to say that out loud." That's what they can expect when they listen to my podcast is not more of the same, but really we're going to talk about the stuff that nobody's talking about. I'm probably going to touch some things that make people uncomfortable. Um, but I really want it to be the space where things are being said that need to be said. And people can walk away feeling encouraged or feeling seen, feeling heard, even though they weren't even a part of the episode. So, yeah.
And I believe you're building or launching a community. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, who is it for? What kind of support? Like, tell us all about it.
Oh, this community is going to be the bane of my existence. So I am building the community that I wish I had when I started my business. It is for the woman who, and I think I said this earlier, it's for the woman who wants to build the business around her life and not in place of it or in competition with it. There is a way to build a business without having to feel burnt out or feel like you need to keep up with the Joneses or the next girl who built this $1 million thing online. There are ways to do it where you can breathe, right? There are ways to do it where you can be surrounded by others who feel the same. Because like I said earlier, this is real life, right? I need to not have a business that is a problem for me. The business needs to work for me. It needs to pay me. It needs to, I need it to do things. And I need it to not be a problem. And so this is for those women who say, yep, me too. I need that because I got all these kids, I got this husband, I got, all this stuff that I'm committed to. I got all these boards that I'm on. Like, I got this whole church that I'm committed to. Like, there are other places in our life that we have to show up. And so if we can run a successful, thriving business that doesn't compete with all that, come do it over here with these other women who are doing the same damn thing. That is who that is for. So it's going to be primarily online with some in-person things if you're local. I plan to do my content days in the midst of that for those founders and people who need that imagery. Like, I'm going to be doing all the things. I also am a big proponent of reading, and so there's a Business Bestie book club for those who like to read. So there's something for everybody. There's some planning and prayer if you are if you love the Lord and you want to bring Him into how you plan everything. There's a little bit of everything. So I'm really excited about it. I'm also very nervous because building a community is not an easy thing to do. Especially when there's already so many places that people can show up. And so yeah, it's just a little bit more about that.
Yeah. And then our final question that we ask every guest on our podcast, how do you market like it's hot?
That's such a interesting question. How do I market like it's hot? I just bring me to the table. That's it. That's all. That's literally all I can do is bring me to the table, and so I do it full force. What you see is what you get, and if you don't like it, like there's a door for that.
Awesome. And then tell everybody how they can reach out to you or find you.
Yes. So I'm literally everywhere. like the photographer should be, but if you are not local to the city of Columbus, you can find me at my website, teahojeda.com. You can find me on Instagram at The Scene Creative. You can also find me on Instagram if you're looking for that community to get connected, at Home CEO. And my government name is Teah, so if you're looking for me on LinkedIn, you can find me under Teah Ojeda.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on to our podcast. Thanks for listening to another episode of Market Like It's Hot. If today's conversation made you rethink how your brand shows up, share this episode with a friend, colleague, or business owner who could use a little more clarity in their marketing. And if you want to take a closer look at your own marketing, grab our complimentary marketing worksheet at myrebelmarketing.com/checklist. It is designed to help founders quickly audit what is working, what is not, and what to fix next. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn at Rebel Marketing and send us your hot take or the marketing advice you are the most tired of hearing. Until next time, stay strategic, stay spicy, and whatever you do, do not settle for boring.